Good morning. Here we are on day 2 of the coronavirus and online learning. What I'm going to do today is we're going to talk about, as you can see behind us, components of the wall. We did the vocabulary yesterday. We talked a little about everything that needs to be done, but today we're going to get into the nuts and bolts and talk about parts. So, as you look at, you should be on objective 2 here, and you can follow along, and with your worksheet that we're going to pull out, we're going to go over all the components in there. Also, when you look at the day 1 and the other walls, if you go to let's see, 2.0, and you see the components of the wall, it gives a little more definition of each. I will talk about all of these and hopefully fill you in on some of these. I wish you were here for some discussion, but as it is, it's not going to be here today, so I guess you're going to have to live and learn and bear with me, sort of thing. So, as we pull out the folder, which you should have again, this one, again, we will talk. So when you look at it, number 1 is if you don't know, hopefully everybody knows because we framed members all our walls already, or most of all of them, and that's a double top plate. Again, that strengthens, stiffens walls. You have sheetrock that you can screw to on the inside and on the outside. It basically is for your double top plate so you can nail plywood to. And again, you want to keep those splices minimum at 2 feet. I would like overlap, so if again you have 16 footers, you would like to overlap them about 8 feet, okay? Number 1 is a double top plate. Number 2 is headers. And as you can see in the picture, the header basically runs by 1.5 inches. As we discussed yesterday, or if you remember, I'll do it again, your header should be 3 inches bigger, so 1.5 inches on both sides. Why? Because your studs are 2x4s and the actual size, not the nominal size, the actual size is 1.5 inches by 3.5 or 5.5 inches, depending on what you're working with. So your header, if you were working with rough cut lumber and it was 2 inches, your header size would have to be 4 inches bigger, and go from there for allow your trimmer studs. If you do go bigger than 5 feet, rule of thumb is 6 feet, but I like 5 feet. Once it's over 5 feet, I always double jacks because of shrinkage and because of the weight up above. You never know if someone's going to put a water bed or something up above just to carry that load for the second floor, or in the roof if they have an attic to carry some weight that people put storage on. The better the load, it's always better to overbuild than underbuild. So again, the header is number 2. When you look at number 3, that's the top plate. That's what you nail your headers into. That's what you nail your regular studs, your partition walls, your corner assemblies, all that stuff. You literally nail it into and go from there. It's very wobbly until you put the double top plate on. It can bend if you go more than 16 feet. Again, try to use the lineal footage properly. If you only got 14-foot walls, just use 14 footers and continue your layout. All right, number 4 is the cripple studs. Now the cripple studs are small studs that show above the door. They're like mini studs to keep on layout, 16 on center, which is what we commonly use. If they're 2 foot on center, which some people use for exterior, and sometimes they use foot on center depending on the load that's up above. Some condos and stuff, I've used 1 foot on center. It's very, very small. Other ones that you can see is underneath the window where number 9 is. Those are also called cripple studs. They don't have to just go above doors. They can go below windows, and they're to keep it on layout also. Okay, again, so 4 is cripple studs. Number 5, when you look at it, is our sole or bottom plate. Just what it says, like the sole of your sneaker, the bottom of your foot, whatever the case, that is how we do it. Remember, we snap a line, and we usually toenail our bottom plate in once we get it straight. And once you snap a line, the line never lies. So if you snap a line, you keep that, you always have a straight edge, and then you can cross tape and get it diagonally. Or again, you can do your 3, 4, 5 method, and you can square up any wall before you put plywood. Always square it up. It is never a good thing to just throw on pieces of plywood and try to square it up with that. Okay, because you could have crowns, you could have bows. It just doesn't seem to work. Okay, so that's number 5. When you look at number 6, which is rarely used these days, but why they used it was they used scrap lumber. If you were using 2x4, they take the scrap 2x4s and they would put blocking in per se, and it would be a partition wall assembly. I've worked with some people that still use these. They're great to put in before. The biggest issue that why people got away from them was because of the insulation factor. Once you close that up and then you put your interior wall, if you did not put any insulation in or you couldn't get it in tight, if you put it in before and then it rained, then the insulation would shrink. That's a big issue. And then you have a cold spot in your house, and then all of a sudden you get a draft one way or another, or a transition behind the sheetrock, and you could just never get it out. And it's never good to have insulation wet, especially with these airtight houses now. If you do that, you can create black mold, which is not good for you either. So the R factor is R19 of 6 inches of insulation, or 5.5 inches of insulation loose bat. Most people now are spraying in foam like we will on this house, hopefully when we get back. If not, then they also use what they call rock wool. Rock wool is that brown insulation. If you see above stored in above our tool room, that's usually brown, dark brown, charcoal. It's high, dense packing. They used to use it for sound barrier in a lot of walls. Now they use it because of its R factor. They figured out the R factor would be 21, and that is the new code for energy efficient, R21. If you look at our shop here, or our outside walls, we have thin metal, and then they have foam in between, another thin metal. That is R21. Believe it or not, all you need is 3 inches of that spray and foam dense pack to make it R21. So again, number 6, as we look at it, is a partition assembly. We normally now just put in blocking. I try to stay away from them strictly because of insulation purposes, but some people still use them. Number 6, that was number 6, excuse me. Number 7 is a regular stud. Now, as I talked about yesterday, regular studs can vary in length and go from there. When we do our house, you have 8'1" as your ceiling height. Your studs are 92 5/8. The biggest thing is measure the studs once, sometimes twice. I have framed up the whole wall, not thinking anything of it, did not measure it, and it was, all the studs they sent me were 8 feet. 92 5/8 and 8 feet. There's not a lot of difference, and when you grab them, you don't pay attention. The only way I used to do it, pay attention, is if you had an 8-foot bed, you could know that you were about 4 to 6 inches short of being in the bed, and if you got 8-footers, it was tough to close the tailgate. So always check, double check around here. Pre-cuts in other parts down in Massachusetts and Rhode Island are 77 3/4. So that basically leaves the walls not at 8 feet. It leaves the walls at 7'6", 7'7", somewhere around there. They're for the smaller conventional houses, and they also have pre-cuts that are for 9-foot walls, because sheetrock does come 4'6" in some areas. Okay. That's number 7, so that's a regular stud. And again, as you remember, what is the length? You got it, 92 5/8. That should be the calculations. When we start calculating stud length and going from there, you should always double check in assembly. Number 8, you will see a corner assembly. Again, they used to use 2 regular studs and then put blocking in between for 3.5-inch walls. What we do now is our California corners. And let me show you. You guys have framed these up. It's something simple where you have your stud right here. And then hopefully everybody can see that. California corners, obviously they are made this way. The issue is So when you nailed your other wall right to it, your next wall to this, you would have a stud right here. Your next layout, 16 on center here. Okay, go from here, it would actually catch a sheetrock. The only issue with having this is, again, there's dead space behind here, and if you were putting an outside corner for wood on the outside, you didn't have anything to nail. So if this was an outside corner, that's why we made, or I had you guys make, the U-shaped corners. X's being studs. That I had you make the U-shaped corners like this. So if you put these in the wall like this, you have, here we go. So if I put the stud here, you had a U to catch this one and a U to catch this one. That was the whole purpose of corner assembly. But as you see on number 8, that's what it looks like. And again, you follow objective 2, it literally lets you know. Number 9 is the rough sill. Again, that's the bottom part. It holds the window up. This one's showing 1. Some people use 2 sills, and it's strictly for the trim if you put an apron on the bottom plate, or if you put colonial casing, depending if you put the thicker stuff. Most people use the 2.5 inch or 2 1/4 and trim out their windows. If you use the 3.5 inch, bigger farmhouse style, then a lot of people used 2 because you had 3 inches to hit going around rather than a 16 on center. Okay. Number 10, when you're looking at, that's the trimmer stud that goes from the bottom of the header all the way to sometimes a rough sill. This one's showing it going all the way to the bottom. Again, some people do it that way. I wasn't taught that way. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. Just like when you see beside number 10 on the left, that's called a king stud. Even though that's not labeled, you can see it in this one on your worksheet. It's not labeled, but other things that it is. So a king stud is a regular stud that's just nailed into a header or opening of a door one way or another. Other things that are not on here to let you go, you can have a rough opening of the door. Most doors and windows that you literally see, they always do the width first versus the height. So if you have, hopefully you can see this, if you have a 2.6, 6.8, and we've discussed this before, it's actually 2 feet, 6 inches by 6 foot, 8 inches. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. Let me tip it up. 2'6", so it's a 2.6, 6'8". They do windows, everything by that same dimension, and that is what the actual window is. You have to make it a little bigger for yourself. Okay, I will go and shop and go over all these. Hopefully this has been helpful. If not, just let me know. Email me, text me, do whatever. Every day, check in. Okay, this is for you. This isn't for me. I know all this stuff. I'm trying to help you guys out to learn this stuff. And I'm going in lab. And the next post that you'll see today, I'll go in lab, and everything that you framed up and done, I will just point out and do the same sort of thing. Thank you. Be safe. Have a great day. And I really miss you guys. Hope to see you soon. And be healthy, please.